hang on. I'm good then, I think. We just need to bum out a tune.
But if Ben's in it, has to be something like bum 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 ba bum 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 ba bum 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 bum.
We're harmonising, we're levelling up. I'm up on the Elmo level. Have we come up for a name? Did we stick with that name of Guess the Bum on that idea?
I don't think we named it. That can be season 2's focus.
Let's run that past HR if Guess the Bum will pass.
I'm not sure.
We are green in 3, 2, 1. Hello, Dramfacers. Welcome to podcast episode 12 with that very dramatic countdown, making more of the moment than it merits. My name's Gregor, otherwise known as Time for a Dram. Today I'm joined by Rob Roy, Scott, and Ben. How are we all?
Aye.
Terrific. Very well, thank you.
Good.
Yourself?
Good stuff. I need to qualify. Is it Ben Diedrich or Diedrich?
Diedrich.
I feel like 10 years in Germany paid dividends that I can order food and beer, and I know that it's Diedrich. Nice to see you, Ben. Nice to hear you.
Nice to see you. Yeah.
Nice to do a little round table, see what everyone's drinking. I shall start with Roy. How are we doing? What are you drinking? What's in the glass?
Hey, I've gone a wee bit off-piste tonight. I've tried this a couple of times, and I'm trying it with you guys tonight. I think it's pretty nice. This is a Canadian single malt whiskey. It's Two Brewers Yukon single malt. This happens to be release number 30, which just happens to be they're peated. 46% ABV, all natural, mashed with water from glacier-fed streams is their declaration on the front label. This was a gift to me from the community. I have to say it's a Scotch-alike, you know, those whiskies, right? It's very Scotch-alike, but it somehow manages to be not Scotch. I'm enjoying this one tonight. I'm glad that this is the one I poured. It's not particularly peaty. It's very, very lightly peated. But it's going down quite well. So yeah, I'm going Canadian this evening, just because it was handy and I fancied it. Two Brewers.
I don't know if it's the Scot in me. Whenever I hear about Canadian, I always want to make the joke about Canadian, because it's the one similarity, the tones and the accent, or the vernacular.
Canadian,
We say as a question.
They've also got a very specific way of pronouncing words like about, right? About. Or certain, I'm sure it's not all Canadians, but certain Canadians have that pronunciation, which usually gives them away, because it's tough to tell a Canadian accent from a North American or an American, as in from the States. You know, I think it's tough to tell the difference.
And it's the French influence, right? It's the I think that's affected some of the enunciation, if I'm right. Ben, you're probably more in than me. East and West Coast.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, because Canada's split. I mean, you have Eastern Canada. You know, you're talking about the French influence, so presumably originating sort of from East or Montreal, but then you have sort of just British Columbian dialect, which I feel is slightly different. But I'm probably as ignorant as you are to really sort of the nuances between the two. But to say it's indistinguishable from North American or accents from the States, I would say the States there's just such a spectrum, and there are parts of the northern United States that are very similar. You're just right over the border, to Canada.
Yeah,
for most of the country.
I think we Brits just went. We realised we're way out of depth. Let's stick with what we know. Scott, what is in your glass?
Well, last time I was on the podcast, I was delving into water to try and get its characteristics.
Yes.
Oh, you were pouring doubles.
Uncut.
You were going for it that night.
Yeah, I had doubles and everything, and the next morning I felt terrible. So I've reverted back to whiskey. So tonight I'm having a nice wee. I've been on a real Longmorn kick recently.
Oh
yeah!
I think I mentioned it last time. I was on about some bourbon barreled Longmorns, but I'm having an old classic tonight. Some of you might recognise this one. It's the 16-year-old
Mhm.
olive coloured
course.
Oh, it's that one.
from back in the day.
Look how much of it you have.
I know.
That's a lot.
It's all going down the pipe tonight. So
Yeah.
no, it's this doesn't get broken out very often. I'll try to eke it out as long as I can. So yeah, I thought I'd get out this one. So yeah, it's the old 48% non-chill filtered, the olive coloured one that comes in the olive box, not the
Yeah.
purple one, which is a classic. I bought this at auction, obviously, and I probably paid a bit too much for it, but I just wanted it to try it again because it's been a long, long time since I tried it. And as I say, I've been on a huge Longmorn kick, so this was dusted off from the back of the stash.
Nice.
So I'm enjoying
That's that. I mean, we've talked on that in the past, that particular bottle, but it's a good one to focus on for a second. Or the question of, like, for me, that was one that it's a whiskey drinker's whiskey, and when I first opened it, my palate wasn't developed enough to understand. You know, it just tasted arguably just like whiskey to me.
Yeah.
I'm curious to the rest of you guys. Can you isolate a whiskey that maybe was you were too young in your journey to understand it, and then maybe came back in a couple of years?
Yeah.
Is there one?
Yeah, for me it was Springbank 10.
Yeah.
In 2012, I bought a bottle of Springbank 10. Because remember those days you could actually buy Springbank, and
Yeah.
and I tried it, and I think I'm not having this. What's this about? It's terrible. So I tried to get it past the shoulder of the bottle. I got about quarter of the way down the bottle, and I was like, I'm just not. I don't get it. I just my palate wasn't ready for it, so I just put it in the back of the cupboard, and I think it was 12 to 14 months later I came back to it, and it just smacked me about the chops. It just hit the spot straight away. I don't know what it was. It just happened. I got it suddenly. I got those nuances. I got a bit of the smoke character in it, and but it was those. It was the kind of the packaging, remember, with the kind of black embossed label,
Yes.
like a black background with a big S on it.
Yes.
But that was one of the only bottles that I just couldn't understand, and I thought I'm just gonna park it. Yeah, and then as I say, from then on, I've enjoyed most things Springbank. So yeah, that's one for me.
What sort of time passed between that first purchase and then coming around?
It was about 12 to 14 months, Gregor. I
Okay.
remember buying it, and I bought it in Glasgow in the Good Spirits Company. Maybe it was 2013 actually. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It was and yeah, I opened it that night, the night I got it, and I just thought I was so looking forward to it, and I just like I'm not feeling this. But yeah, I managed to consume quite a lot of whiskey over the next 12 months, and yeah, it was just clicked.
Nice. Any other takers on a bottle that they were too early for and then came back to?
Well, I need to back up Scotty on the Springbank thing, because I remember the Whiskey Rev and I bought a bottle of, or it was actually him, he bought a bottle of Hazelburn. And it was the Rundlets and Kilderkins. You might remember that special edition that they released. And while we enjoyed it, we identified immediately with that thing that we would come to recognise much later in our journey as that funk aspect of Campbelltown whiskies. But we didn't know what it was at the time, and we talked about it being very unique. We just couldn't articulate it or define it. But while we enjoyed that whiskey, that made it an arm's length whiskey for a long time. And it wasn't until we started to do these wee verticals that the Rev or myself would go on Master of Malt back in the day, 2013, 2014 time period, and you could buy a little 5-pack of samples and do verticals from distilleries. And I remember Glen Scotia being done. And I think we probably went through a Springbank one where we did Hazelburn, Long Row, Springbank, that kind of thing, and realised that thing we were getting was in every one of them. So we realised it was quite a unique thing, either down to the distillery or the region. But it took me a while to get my head around it. And then one Christmas, I went into some neighbours, and the neighbour, the wife had bought a bottle of Springbank 10 for the husband for Christmas. Oh, you like whiskey, Roy? I've got a wee whiskey. I've heard a great story about this distillery. They employ everybody locally, and she gave me the whole story and things, and I'm sitting there. I knew she was talking about Springbank, of course, but I'm just sitting there listening, and she pours a Springbank 10, and I still can taste that glass of whiskey she poured for me on that Boxing Day back in, I don't know what year it was, but And I'm like, oh, it's true what they say. This is just a really densely flavoured, fantastic dram. And the reason I wasn't connecting it is probably the same as Scotty. I just hadn't worked out how to untangle that whiskey yet. We swim in it now. We swim in this stuff now. When we can get it, we absolutely love it. But yeah, that's Scotty. You and I often reflect on how parallel our whiskey preferences and journey has been. So it's yet another one.
Yeah.
Ben, what about yourself? Was there a bottle or a distillery maybe?
Maybe not a bottle. I'm just trying to think back over the years. I would say particular style, which is probably evocative of certain distilleries, but which would be the lightly peated or peated mainland, the mainland peated spirit, peated Highland. And I have one in my glass now. And just I early on, I think I wrote off the sort of the mainland peated whiskeys as just being, as one who's new to it would render it boring. And I sort of coveted the heavily peated or more sort of the coastal whiskeys. And have the tables turned these days because it's just it's a style that I embrace so lovingly now. Just the peated Highlands or even some peated Speyside whiskeys and just so you can pick out some distilleries from that really embrace that style, but really it's just the category as a whole that I've completely done a 180 on.
Yeah. Just to caveat this, Ben, you can name distilleries on this podcast, by the way, if you want.
Yeah,
this is your one. This is the one opportunity that you can actually talk to them by name.
Just that drop in digits.
Well, funny enough, we do that internally every day. It's not like we don't actually we don't talk in code. It's just what you put on the bottle is a different story.
Ben, I don't know. Do you watch did you watch Key and Peele when it was on way back?
No, not familiar.
There's a hilarious scene in there between two guys, two husbands, and they're trying to have a little bit of banter or whatever away from the wives,
I've seen
and
that.
they're talking about, I say beep, or I say this, so they're trying to be manly in the sly. I was going to say, I wonder if that's the same for you guys, if you sort of like sneak off and go, Springbank, Macallan.
Macallan's more likely than Springbank these days. I don't know the last time SMWS would have released anything from Springbank, but
it's been a few years. It's probably been 3 years, I would say.
Since
the last one. Yeah.
The internet isn't robust enough for that release, Ben. Rob, what's in your glass?
Well, speaking of which, I'm drinking Springbank 10. I
think
it's I think it's the
show off
one.
I know.
It's actually I think I poured this the first podcast. I thought, since it's the finale of the season, I'll pour it again.
Spoiler, Rob.
Spoiler.
Well, I know we
Surprise.
did say we were rounding out on episode 12, taking a bit of a break through the summer, but yeah.
Well, can I just say, obviously, that I'm drinking a 16-year-old Longmorn from the past, which is easier to get hold of than a bottle of Springbank 10 that Rob's got.
That's right.
I have my sauces.
Is there still some of that Longmorn kick? I feel like I cleared up the last few in the UK.
You can still get it occasionally, mate, but again, you'll be paying over.
What's it going for now? I want to say I got it for no more than 100, I think, and even then it might have been a wee bit under that when I got it.
I didn't pay 100 for that, it was less, but I can't remember how much I paid for it. It wasn't 100 though; it was 2 figures.
But you bought that a long time, like quite a while.
No, not that long ago, Gregor. This year.
Yeah, it was peaking at 250 at one point when it got crazy, but then as soon as a whiskey reaches those prices, that the market floods with it a little bit because people realize they can make money on it, and it came out and then it attenuated quite strongly. And 100 to 120, I think, is the going rate just now because I do keep a fond eye on the green box Longmorn 16. I do, and I've got a wee drip left, a lot less than Scott does there. So I've got my eye out again.
I'll top up your bottle. It's fine.
That's fine.
I'll bring an empty bottle
you finished
with me to Isla.
Rob's gonna feign falling asleep so that when we all fall asleep, he'll wake up and get mind sweeping. He'll be taking samples everywhere.
You guys all drank that last night. You did. You just finished it. There was a big celebration. He's gone home with a rucksack full of sample bottles. Chink, chink, chink.
Oh, aye. Yeah.
Yeah.
What if claiming I'm the sample guy? I'll be
He
bringing
likes
a lot of
these.
empties.
He likes these samples. Yeah.
Too funny.
Yeah.
Ben, but you said what was it? A smoky Highland in glass?
I just opened this Ardnamurchan cask strength.
Oh,
that I picked up from the gift shop last
Brilliant.
week when I was with Roy. I actually have 3 bottles lined up that I just brought over, from Scotland, and I intend to uncork all 3 of them. So I've just finished that one, but fantastic. I don't actually think before I buy in this bottle, we were there, Roy. I don't think we even tried this in the shop.
No, we didn't. We didn't try it. But I had just told you, for £60, I think they were selling it at £60 in the shop.
Yeah, £65.
65 was it? It's just it's a no-brainer.
Yeah,
It really is.
just Ben, puff your chest up a second into shot.
Oh, am I representing? Yeah.
I think you are.
Hey.
Yeah. Confirm or deny, you've not taken that off since you were there a few days ago.
Hashtag ad. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's good. Great minds think alike because I know I'm going out that way.
There we go.
I thought I'd pick a special bottle to open, or rather, I'd open a bottle on the podcast. So this is Ardnamurchan AD. I mean, somebody else can explain the numbering to me. I only just figured out the SMWS numbering system, and there's a new one with the Ardnamurchan.
Show me the label that you have. Show me the one that you have.
AD 321.
All right,
So I guess
it's a core range. Yep. So that's March 2020-21 release. So the 0321 is that, and then the number following that is a just in what is it? No, what's it when numbers follow in order? It's called. Oh my god, my brain. Sequential. Thank you. I don't think I'm going to edit that out. I'm just going to leave it in and let everyone know just how foggy my brain is these days. Yeah, that's just the third batch of 2021, I guess. But
I think this is US. I think this is.
Oh no, it's not. It's the third batch actually. That's.
Oh, my bad. It's a 700, so it wasn't the US.
No, it could be US. They're shipping 700s to the US.
Mm-hmm.
They've never had a 750 release to my knowledge. They've only released 700s.
Then I think they did carve out something for the US from memory. And I'm going to pop the cork. Here we go. See if the mic picks it. Oh yes.
There you go.
There's 1,200 bottles of we discovered 1,200 bottles of that cast strength Ben coming to the US, but you've obviously got it well ahead of that. Can I just mention that people that are listening to the podcast generally are going to be like, and honestly, the VPub, they're going to be like, Roy, and they're all such Ardnamurchan fanboys, and we butter their bread really quite thick, I think, but there's a reason for it. And we want more people to be doing things the Ardnamurchan way. More of them are, natural integrity, being as honest as they can, being as responsible as they can, not taking the piss at prices and things. And just the reason that it's sticking on shelves now is not because of a downturn in demand. It's because of how hard they've worked to fill the shelves and get it out there. If they can make it stick on their immediate markets, they can expand to more markets, everybody. And if the whiskey's that good at 5 and 6 years old, I just can't wait. I cannot wait.
That's tremendous.
I've been studying your gaze.
That's great. What peat level's that?
50% peated, 50% unpeated, 50% peated. And their peated malt, I think, is 50 ppm, but I might need to look that up.
I'm not sure.
I'm worried I might be, Anakin getting that little glint in his eye.
Oh, the dark side beckons.
Towards the dark side.
It happens to us all, Gregor.
Heat leads to suffering. I skipped a few steps in between there. Yeah.
all my sherry bottles just started shaking.
Before you know it, Gregor, those sherry bottles will all be sold, and you'll be right into your peat, and you'll be like, "This, I should have bought that. I should have bought that rye 5 years ago when I hated it."
Sherry rye.
Aye. Just actually, the best rye I ever had was a sherry fin. It was I can't remember. It'd been in sherry for a while. Roy, you asked something there, and we waxed lyrical on the last podcast about how to make your tea. Like how what is it? Milk in first? Is it?
Yeah.
You were talking about buttering the Ardnamurchan bread metaphorically. I had this. I ponder some of the most silly things, banal things at times.
That's okay.
Here's one. Here's one. Right? Do we all enjoy toast generally of a time?
It's really
Right.
showing that we're getting to the end of the season, isn't it? That we started doing tea content.
I mean,
You know what? We've said to Ben, this is kind of an edgy podcast.
Oh, aye.
Talking about toast and tea.
Toast and tea. I'm just
We
going to
go-
log off now, everybody, okay?
We go where
It's nice
other
seeing you.
podcasts. We go where other podcasts. They're not.
Fear
They're
to
not.
tread. They fear to tread
They-
on the tea and the
they-
toast.
Gregor,
I
you
wonder.
cannot... Listen, you can pair whiskey with food, yeah, but not toast. Not happening.
Not toast.
Nah, forget it.
I was going to ask how. Well, first of all, when are you buttering your toast? Are you buttering it as soon as it's out the toaster, or do you let it cool down?
Well, definitely not before the toaster.
Yeah, don't...
No,
yeah.
sorry. Aye, no, clearly, because then you're making a grilled cheese.
Without cheese.
No,
No, you need to put it on as soon as it comes out the toaster
Absolutely,
because it melts. That's
I've
how
got
you
to
do
be
it.
honest. I only found out
No,
recently that
no.
people wait for it to go cold. Like I've seen people like
What's
deep
wrong with
in
you?
their toast slices
Seriously.
to make it
This
cold.
is worse
and
than chill filtration. I'm not having this.
No,
I'm on Scott's side. This is
the answer
totally
lies in between. You can't put it straight away because it all melts. You want to sort of retain some sort of
But,
solidity to your butter.
I get it.
So 80% melt, 20% solids. That's
It does depend
key.
on this the slice that you're cutting. Like, because if you're having a thin slice, like it's no use. But if
aye.
you're having a nice thick slice of toast, you want it to soak in there like a you know. I can't believe we're talking about this. This is
I think
nonsense.
the best toast you get is in a B&B. You know, when when we're all about to
Yeah.
experience some of that, and that more often than not is cut into triangles and it's put on the little trolley that
Cooler,
comes and
it's the
holds, and
cooler.
it cools down, and you scrape on as much. I mean, quite frankly, I don't even spread it. I just pat it out from the packet thing, so it stays a good half a centimetre thick. So that was my question: was how thick should your butter be when you're?
I think like everything, it's contextual. It's got to be contextual because if you're just toasting some white bread, some British white bread, it pops out the toaster, butter on straight away, it melts in. You eat it while it's still hot and warm. It's delicious. It's the toast's dripping down your lips, and the butter is dripping down your lips. But there's other like bread. If you get kind of brown bread, decent bread, sourdough bread, whole grain bread, oat and barley bread, those kind of breads, you'll leave to cool a la B&B, breakfast trolley style. And then you've got this really nice ceremony of scraping on the butter. You said scraping, and it does that noise that as you scrape it on. And the butter goes on cool and it doesn't melt in, and it's a completely different experience. So mood dependent for me. I like both.
I want to see teeth marks in the butter, how thick my
Yes.
butter is.
There you go.
If you want to be a real rebel about it, though, you just open the tub of butter and then just put the bit of toast inside the carton and smear it. Do it that
You, use
way.
it, you dip your toast in the butter.
Yeah, why not? I've heard it tastes better that way. Anyway, Gregor,
Is this a whiskey podcast?
I know.
Yeah, back to the whiskey guy. Sorry for that divergence. That might be the other podcast. That might be another offshoot.
Aye.
middle-aged.
Time
humans
for a
and,
slice.
Middle aged.
Time for a cuppa. Sorry, you're aging us down.
We should have a food break halfway through the podcast.
That's
Tea
right.
time
we
with
come back.
Gregor.
Yeah.
Well, there's a good one. What do you pair food pairings? I've still not gone there, Roy. I know you've talked about cheese and whiskey, and I've not done it, and I hear good things. Where's a good starting point to talk about, or rather, if you were going to try and pair with anything, what would you start with? Would you start with cheese?
Are you trying to segue into the Dramaphone?
Maybe.
I'm
That's-
loving watching your expression there. It's like, ooh,
Aye.
that's right. The Dramaphone this week is exactly that.
That's spot on. That's spot on.
But
I would-
that's out of pure coincidence because we just started to talk about this tonight. We've not made that link, have we?
No, and there was no post editing needed. So let's use this one. That's a good shout. I'm gonna play this very loud, and here we go. And everyone listen, because I'd like everyone's answers.
Good evening, Dramfacers. It's Craig here. I've recently been on the Gower Peninsula. I've caught myself 3 decent-sized edible crabs and a really, really nice big lobster. I'm sitting here after cooking them, debating what whiskey to enjoy with it. So any help would be grateful. If anybody could suggest a really nice whiskey to go with my lobster and my edible crabs, it would be much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you,
The
caller.
wee bird's
Thank you,
tweeting in the
caller.
background there. Did you hear that?
I did hear that. It's lovely.
So there's the brief. I think it was 1 lobster and a few edible crabs. What are you reaching for?
Well, normally these things are slattered in butter, aren't they? So I feel like you need something quite sharp to cut through the fat.
Yeah.
The first thing that came to mind actually was I had a really nice Balvenie 12 single cask, the first fill that released, and that was quite sharp and it's quite nice.
The bourbon
Well, what
barrel.
about style first, maybe?
I'd go for peated, I think. Talk about
interesting.
butter and lemon. So I would say an Ardbeg 10 would be a
Nice call.
cracker.
Yeah. What about something with a bit of salinity?
Mm-hmm.
Like what Ben and Gregor have in their glass right now would do not bad. An Ardamurchan. A Talisker, I think, would be a good fit. But You're right, something a wee bit sharp and salty. I mean, crab meat is sweet, isn't it? Let's be honest. It's quite a sweet meat.
Yeah.
I think that would probably work. The chances of Craig still being in the same position when he hears this reply.
He's on standby, just wait.
Yes, right.
It's going cold.
The weeks that takes us to take his Dramaphone and then edit it.
Yeah, Craig, have a sniff of that seafood. Just see that it's still all right. First of all,
yeah.
Well, Roy, we just
I would have gone.
We just had
Sorry,
lobster on Isla last week, and the whiskey was the Ardbeg Ugadal, and I would say that's not the whiskey for it. I don't think the sherry cask influence is the right flavor profile.
I mean, we put up with it, didn't we? We dug deep.
No,
we got by.
It was a trying time, but we pulled through.
I would say I'd go something from Old Pulteney. I think that would be sort of maybe it doesn't cut through the butter, but sort of supplements the buttery texture a little bit with a little bit of salinity
without the peat.
Yeah, that sounds good.
That's really nice. Yeah, I like that.
See, I would have thought like springing off what's normally paired with a seafood, which is normally a white wine, typically, or a chilled white wine. So you would go somewhere maybe crisper, sharper. I would have probably thought an ex-bourbon, actually, something maybe even a bit fruity, but I would need to call up my Dyla ex-bourbon mate Monroe, just to see what he would recommend.
I mean, I think that buttery note you're going to get on some ex-bourbon casks as well, Nothing springs to mind that would go with it, but I think
the call of Ardbeg 10 is pretty close.
Yeah.
It's got to be, or Lagavulin 8 would be a good one, I think.
Yeah, something kind of young and feisty with that kind of, say, that lemony sharpness would be really nice, I think. Or even kind of, a kind of lemon note on it, like maybe with a linkwood. I don't know if linkwood would a castrid linkwood perhaps.
Aye,
cut through it.
Aye, a linkwood. That's the one.
I always find the classic laddie's got a bit of like acidity to it.
Another good call.
Yeah, that's a good one as well.
Nice, bright, youthful. Yeah.
In tandem with that, I think the Port Charlotte is. I really find a really strong lemon in that. Something that'd be quite nice.
I mean, can you imagine a more wonderful thing to do than sit with a big plate of seafood and kick the backside out of trying all the different whiskies to work out what would be the best one? I mean, that's terrible.
If only that was an option
in the coming days,
in the not so distant future. So, listeners, we're here for all of your food pairing questions. We touched on near enough all the whiskies. I think the answer to Craig's question was yes.
That's right. Can I pair whiskey? Yes, just anyone will do.
Yeah,
that's terrific. Yeah, can we raise a wee glass to Craig and just say, thanks for thinking about us while he's sitting on the peninsula there, and he's freshly caught crabs and lobster, and he's recording a wee message for us. That's
cheers, Craig.
Cheers, Craig. There we go. So yeah, speaking of seafood and whiskey altogether, Ben, you're recently back. Have you actually unpacked? Have you got that far?
Yeah. I'm one of those freaks who unpacks within 5 minutes. I can't stand, like just I have to unpack right away. Get in the shower. It was a long flight, probably about
Aye.
2 legs, and yeah, I'm off to Mexico in a couple days, so I've sort of repacked already and going to the land of agave.
Is that? I was just going to say, is that because you've discovered mezcal and now need to go and investigate?
No. It has it's not really a mezcal trip. I do enjoy mezcal and have for a while, but no, it's just for a little holiday. I went with my sister
Oh,
actually.
nice.
She's asked me to come along, so I said, why not? But I'll be consuming plenty
Superb.
of mezcal. That's the goal.
Right. But I mean, circling back to the Scotland trip, I wanted you to answer or finish this sentence or this question, if you
I think
can.
he's too in thought with his Ardnamurchan.
No. I poured something else, and there's all this
Well, that's-
sediment, and I was just wondering
Oh,
if it was
hello.
the glass or the whiskey. But
Look at that, you're getting some fibre as well.
Nutrients.
Who said whiskey isn't the complete package? Okay, you ready, Ben?
I've been ready for what is it, 41
Okay.
minutes? Go ahead, lay down.
Okay,
Yeah.
here we go. And this isn't a tourism ad, okay? Here we go. Scotland, come for the whiskey, stay for the
Gin.
Right, he's not
trying
getting
to sort
back
out-
on, boys. This is his last time.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm trying to sort out if this is a serious question or if this is
No, it
Ah.
was. It was.
and the people. I know that sounds kind of lame with this crowd here, but yeah, definitely the people.
I think it's an interesting question of what people come away with after visiting Scotland. You know,
Besides
like
bottles.
and whiskey's the in. Aye, well, aye. Actually, how many bottles did you come away with?
Just
Ben?
3. Yeah.
Okay, good. No, I think it's an interesting one, and Roy's done a video on the magic of Islay that kind of touches on, everyone's going for a shared reason, but then they experience different things, and it kind of sticks in different ways. I was just curious. You've been quite a few times.
It seems a wee bit romantic, doesn't it? It seems a wee bit whimsical. It seems almost cheesy, but you very quickly realize that the reason that you're smiling, the reason that you're happy, the reason that you feel light, and dare I go as far to say a wee bit younger, and all of these things, it's probably not the whiskey. It's probably not. It's the fun. It's the sense of kind of camaraderie. It's the people. It's the connectedness, and it's the landscape.
Yeah,
You know,
definitely.
it can be brutal, and it can be cold, and it can be midgy laden. It can be challenging in lots of ways, but I feel much more connected to the earth. I feel much more kind of outdoorsy when I'm traveling throughout the wilderness, right? And it's very cathartic. And you come away thinking, oh, the whiskey was nice, but I think the reason I want to go back again is to have some more of those good times. See some more of that bright, iridescent green landscape. And
Mate, I was kind of disappointed that I wasn't allowed to take the car up for the trip because I just enjoy the drive so much. It's such
the
a beautiful,
transition.
yeah. Oh, I mean, say transition. I think I had every single season on the way up.
Yeah.
Like
Oh, aye.
sunshine to snow to everything rain. Like it just felt like it was driving for a whole year. It was,
That
it
happened
was
today.
beautiful.
Literally, that happened here today. It was gorgeous sunshine, and then there was a storm, and the rain was bouncing, and then the wind came, and I thought the windows were coming in, and then the sun came out again. I just couldn't decide what season to be again today, and yeah, it's definitely part of it.
You touch on the geography. There is a change that happens, and it gradually happens. I remember I was particularly homesick when I was in Germany for a while, and I think it was I think my Cosworth needed some TLC from someone back in Scotland, so I took the option to drive it home. So I drove to the ferry, and I can't remember where I landed. I drove through London. I got a congestion fine for driving through London. I didn't know
No
what
clue.
was going on there. But it was quite special driving up through the length of the whole UK and seeing the difference as you go. Like it's definitely a lot greener, like just green in your sort of Wales and sort of northern England, and then it starts to get a little more arid and a bit more rusty, and but there is green up there. There's pockets of green, and I remember being quite cognizant of that. And then never mind when you change to an island. You go across to Islay and it is a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
I think there is a lot to be said for that island.
Yeah, there's something about
that you're cut.
something about getting on a ferry and leaving the mainland behind. No matter, I guess, wherever you are in the world, just going. That's part of the journey. But you feel detached. When I've been to Islay, it's been the same thing every time you get on that ferry. Usually get a double Kalila 12 and just kick back and just watch the waves. And but there's something about that kind of the pace of it as well. That the time of the crossing, a few hours, and it's just you can just kick back. But I would go back to what was said before about people and stuff. I first went to Ireland in 2016. I've been there, lucky enough to get there every year since then. Even despite the pandemic, managed to get across when there was a bit of a lull, and we could get out again. And I went for the whiskey in 2016, and 2017 went to Fishiel. But the rest of the time, it's not been about that. The whiskey's there, but the distilleries, and I think I've mentioned this before in the podcast, but it kind of fades into the background a wee bit, and it's about the people and about the environment, about the scenery, about the weather even as well, because there's something quite, being in the Singing Sands in Islay, and it's howling, a gale, but you don't care because you're there you're just for the experience, I think Islay would it be as good if it was just lovely and sunny every single day? I don't know. I'm not sure it would be.
No,
but,
you need the mood. You need
yeah.
you need the mood. You need the change. Absolutely.
But there's also, I think, there's that. I don't know if it's still there. There's a honesty box up near Kildalton Cross.
That's the Kildalton Cafe. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's great because when I first saw it, I thought, what, come from a city, you're like, this would be stolen, surely.
So do you know what Gregor's looking puzzled there? Kildalton Cafe, just to explain, is a picnic bench with a big, massive plastic Perspex box full of cakes and home-baked goods. And then next to it is a box with a slot in it so that you can pop the money in. But it's the boxes, you just pick up the box and go away with it. The box is not locked down. The lid is not sealed into place. And in the morning it's dropped off, and in the evening it's picked up again, and people just leave money. And I remember asking someone local, I said, that's really interesting. I said, I wonder how many places you could put that in it not to be stolen. And she said, oh, no, stolen? No, I think people pay 2 and 3 times as much. She says.
Yeah.
So that's incredible.
It's definitely a countryside mentality, because we have it round my ends, like little pick-up boxes for vegetables and eggs. And I don't know, just you city folk, you need to come out in the sticks.
Yeah, the only eggs we see outside the supermarket are getting thrown.
Usually
after the football on a Saturday afternoon,
It's amazing how environmentally damaging dishonesty is. All the security, all the things that we need to put in place just because we can't trust each other. It's kind of awful. And I think it's really quite refreshing and stark and obvious when you see things like that remind you what it is just to be considerate. Yeah.
And also, I don't want to spend too much time here talking about Islay, but it's just driving on that road between Port Ellen to Beaumore, and passing cars, everyone's waving at each other. Everyone just gives each other a wee wave, and it's quite a nice thing coming from a city that people can be so friendly because you just don't see it, and no one's beeping their horn. Everyone's just kind of waving, and I think it's just a nice atmosphere to that kind of thing as well. So
I think you can find that. It doesn't have to be an island, and I would say I experienced the same in Orkney when I went up for a wedding. But I'm pretty sure you experience the same when you go to Spey and so on. I think it's the difference of being big city or not, and I think as soon as you get away from that hustle and the speed, I think the people and the way of life is different and it's infectious. Yeah. Ben, I was going to ask you though. You're pretty fresh off the experience, and you're not unfamiliar with the experience of setting yourself off into Scotland and kind of doing all that you do there. I'm just curious, how quickly does that feeling kind of wash over you when you arrive? Like, what is there a trigger point or a trigger moment?
I've been there. I was over in March as well, and I think when I was flying when I got on the board of the plane to go over, and it was the first time since the pandemic and everything. It didn't really hit me until the moment I landed, and then and that triggered sort of previous memories. But after I became reacquainted, and I just flew over a week or so ago. Once I got to the airport, I was just buzzing and I couldn't sleep, and I just knew. But but that's from experience, and I feel now that I've been back for just over a week, and I'm sort of holding on to it still in a way. And I know as the only sort of non-Scot here, it's probably my perspectives might be a little different when I say it's the people. I'm not referring to the people of the island. I'm referring to the people of Scotland. And so. I don't know what that little fist bump was for, but
we do have a token Englishman in.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not English. I'm Yorkshireman.
Oh, nobody's perfect, but no, I think it's just people in general, and I think it's the topography is great. It's a beautiful country, but there are beautiful places around the world. And what makes Scotland unique, I think, is the synergy between the land and the people, and the appreciation of the pace, the lifestyle, the quality of everything you consume. It feels like everything's made with more care. So it's all of it. It's a very warming place and welcoming place, and unique in some other ways. So yes, one question. I give you a long answer, but it's
no,
that's the point of the podcast, right? The longer, yeah. And I think you mentioned something when we were together. You mentioned that very thing. I think you even talked about if you weren't living where you were, you would want to be living in Scotland. And that's maybe got a lot to do with your job and your passion and your experiences of coming into the country. But I think it takes an expat like Gregor, somebody who's travelled extensively, somebody that's seen outside of Scotland and been able to compare and contrast, because all the world has wonderful things to offer. Lots of really pretty scenery and nice weather and things. But the more you travel, the more you start to realise that actually Scotland's okay. It's doing all right. There's lots of really nice things. And as time goes on, I've struggled as somebody in their middle age to pinpoint a country that I would choose over Scotland. That's not something I expected ever to feel or say. But it's difficult for me to find another place that I'd rather stay, and that's got to be a positive thing, right? To discover that, just for you to realise, oh my goodness, I'm very, very bloody fortunate. And I think maybe that's got a lot to do with whiskey. You could argue, no doubt, but I think it's also got a lot to do with the fact that I, in my older years, appreciate that it's not all about the sunshine. There's lots of other things.
Just out of curiosity, would you...
Dramface, the edgiest podcast.
We bring the edge, don't we?
Sorry,
I was just going to say, just out of curiosity, because I kind of swing between. I live in the not in the middle of nowhere, but it's very much the countryside, and I work in the city, and I kind of flip between these two mindsets of like, I want to live in the city. There's everything's there. There's so much going on. There's so much activity. But then you come home at the weekend and it's just like calm and everything just kind of settles down. And I've only ever been to Glasgow very briefly, and I've never been to Edinburgh. And then obviously those are the two big cities. But as a proud Glaswegian, Roy, would you stay in the city, or would you? You say Scotland. Would you never go anywhere else? But would you ever move to?
Yeah, I think I relate completely to what you're talking about, and I love being out in town. I love the city. I love the buzz. I love the throb, and I also love how kind of laid back Glasgow is. It does not take itself seriously at all. It's ridiculously kind of irreverent, and I think that's a nice vibe about it. I also love going to Edinburgh. Edinburgh is so attractive. It's such a pretty city. it's difficult to meet anyone from Edinburgh while you're there. But so I'm responding directly to the animations of Gregor McQuee as I say these words. But I can appreciate both cities. But I think the magic of both cities actually lies in the fact that you can put your arse in a car for 5 minutes and you can be in the middle of nowhere. It's so the transition from city to serenity is very, very quick. You might have noticed that, Ben, when we were traveling just these last few days. I know that you guys probably slept for most of that journey north, but the transition was very fast. You cross the Clyde and you're in the Highlands.
I think I remarked to you, Roy, when we were at Ardbeg, I was commenting, I said, after being in Edinburgh for a few days, the moment we got in the car and just started driving west, not even 5 minutes west of Edinburgh, on our way to Glasgow, just getting out of the city. Of course, from my experience, I've been out there, you just start to see the landscape change immediately. And of course, knowing what's coming helped stir up that emotion for me.
Yeah.
But for my two friends who were with me who hadn't been there, I was just watching them sort of just observe in a half-drunken stupor. But it was, the two wonderful cities, two very, very different cities. As someone who grew up in a big city myself, I like the pace and the vibrancy of a city, but there's nothing like getting west and driving west in Scotland.
Yeah. Yeah. The further west, the better. Unfortunately, McQuee, the further west, the better.
Well, can I just point out, Roy is not a Ouija. He is from Perth.
Oh,
so
all right.
Well, I'm
stick that in your Perthian.
I think that probably
pipe.
puts me in a better place to say those words, because I appreciate the fertile lands of Tayside. I appreciate the buzz and the vibe and the connectedness of the Central Belt, but I adore and I pine for the freezing cold beaches and waters of the West Coast.
No, there's no denying. I think the West Coast, past, as soon as you get past Glasgow, it starts to get really pretty.
Well, as the only Glaswegian here, I have to totally agree, Gregor. Look, we were away overnight in the camper van, and we only went up just past Aberfoyle, so not far from Glengoyne Distillery. And even that drive, it's not that far, but the scenery even there is beautiful as well, And even in the rain, as Roy alluded to earlier on, it was raining and snowing, or not snowing, raining and sunshine and gales today. But yeah, you're not, in Glasgow, you're just 15 minutes outside the city, and you're near Loch Lomond and all the scenery there as well. So, and things do settle down a little bit as well. But I noticed today the greenery was fantastic. And the west, if you're driving up the west coast, I've been up to Ben Nevis Distillery before, and that drive through Glencoe is one of the most incredible drives. It's stunning, especially in the weather.
Biblical.
Yeah.
To quote Liam Gallagher, it's biblical. It is biblical, and no matter, unless it's really, really low-lying cloud and you see hee-haw. Other than that, any weather, it's stunning.
I want to intervene here because I want to. I was present when Ben had his 3rd times the charm trip to Glencoe. It was without incident, despite my erratic driving to try and get us to the airport in time. But Ben's 1st time through Glencoe, he crashed his car. And his 2nd time, he went for a walk and broke his leg.
Oh man!
Do you want to expand on that? Is that a worthy story, Ben?
I'm just a worthless person. No. It was. I'd always wanted to visit because I grew up a big fan of James Bond and the novels. My father used to read the novels, the Ian Fleming novels to me, and so of course that movie Skyfall came out, and there's that scene in which 007M drive through Glencoe. It's become a famous scene, and I just said, okay, I want to go there.
You and the rest of the world, did you see how busy it was? My goodness.
Oh yeah. Well, this was I was there in 2018, I think was the first time. So yeah, the movie had been a few years old, but I was doing what every idiot does, which is drive, with the phone, taking a video on one hand, shifting, to 4th gear in my left hand, driving, steering with my elbows, and of course I hit a rock and bursted a tire. It wasn't really a full-on accident. I just got stuck on the side of the road for few hours in a torrential downpour. But yeah, so but even then, I remember looking back and saying, if I'm going to be stuck anywhere in this circumstance, and forget the fact that I have to drive back to Glasgow on a sort of a spare tire with a speed limit of 50 miles per hour. It wasn't a great circumstance, but look where I am, of all places in the world, to be here. It's hard not to even feel some sense of positivity. And so when I went back less than a year later, I said, I'm going to really spend more time there. Then my second trip, I said, enough of the whiskey. I'll visit a few distilleries, but I want to go back and just see Scotland. And of course, I went on a little hike first take some photos, and I underestimated the Scottish terrain and broke my leg there. But again, what a beautiful place to be lying on the ground.
Man. Those, I mean, the reality is those are marshes, but from a photo, they look like a luscious lawn. And the amount of people that think, oh, I'm just going to go out for a what? And that's a bad idea.
Yeah. So Roy, I asked Roy, listen, Roy, I'd love to drive back. Can you do the driving this time? I'll sit in the back seat. I'll be the passenger. We won't get out. And we didn't. And so thank you, Roy, for that lovely assist.
Despite everyone really, we could have done with a break, a comfort break, let's say, at that point in the journey. And we didn't stop because we were constantly looking at the sat-nav that was jumping 10 minutes in each direction. And I was super nervous, the pressure on me to get folk back for the travel arrangements and things. And then once we get through all of that, one of our passengers, Neil, said, and you know what, I fancy taking the train. And in mid-journey, he just booked himself onto a train. And so we didn't need to be, going back quite so quickly. So we could have, relaxed a little bit and got out of Glencoe, but by that time we'd already passed. But I have to say, even getting out of Glencoe would not have been how you remember it, Gregor. Scotty, I think you might even be surprised. I don't know when you last drove through Glencoe, but every lay-by, and they're not little lay-bys, these are big, type 1, type, prepared. They're not properly tarmacked or metalled, but they're, you can park in these big ad hoc car parks. Every one of them was full.
Yeah.
Full. Everybody just spilling out, and just people standing on the side of the roads, arms stretched out, taking selfies and things. You had, normally you drive through Glencoe and you're just looking out for the sheep and the lambs, but it was just so many people, so many bright colours and things, and it's just
we were up
nature.
Late summer last year, and it was exactly the same. I think it was August, mid-August, and it was just people, cars everywhere. Just parked in the most inappropriate places.
Yeah,
it was just.
I wonder
if quite eye-opening.
I wonder if that's here to stay. I wonder if that's something that's it's not temporary. There's certainly a rush for travel right now.
Yeah, and I guess that might be what it's been, Ben. Because people try to eventually getting out and about again, traveling, as you say, and instead, people not been getting on flights that much really yet. So maybe last summer people were just, we're going to go to the Highlands, we're going to go take a travel and see where we're going to end up. So hopefully it'll calm down.
Here I had two follow-up questions there before my next larger one. Ben, pop quiz. You mentioned James Bond. There can be only one film, not actor, because I think we all know the answer.
Tim Dalton.
There's only one. No, what you're somebody's never seen the James Bond films, Ben. What one are you telling them to watch first?
Oh, that's a really good question.
I'm torn between two, but I think Casino Royale is the truest representation of Bond as he was intended by Ian Fleming. Of course, it was the first novel, but Daniel Craig's debut as this sort of James Bond, the soldier, he is turned spy. I think was fantastic. Goldfinger is probably my favorite film, but I think for an introduction to the character and the story, and that the plot is not the world's ending and we have to go blow up a satellite. It's just it's sort of a terrorism crime storyline that I think is. So I'm going to go with that one.
I like it. As an asthmatic, it was nice to see that they had some airtime in Casino.
That's right. Yeah.
The second follow-up question was for you, Scotty. You were mentioning camper van, and perhaps selfishly, I'm curious. Any pointers or tips in the short time that you've had and experience in camper van life? What advice do you give to anyone doing it for the first time?
God. I would say pack light. Don't take too much stuff. And also just check the skylight for any leaks. That does help, rather than sitting in a campsite when you've both had far too much to drink. There's no way you can go back home, but the rain's the water's coming down. Roughly where your head's going to be that night. So I would check these things.
Yeah.
I would say
Okay.
and also open when you're leaving and exiting and entering the camper van. Do it quickly, because last night the midges were having a party last night on a Saturday night. It was it was a bit crazy. No, I would say, if you can park at a proper campsite, use the facilities that are there. Try not to get in the habit of emptying the waste. You always use facilities that are provided. It's a good place. Also, make sure you don't travel dry. I've done it before, and there wasn't enough in that hip flask to do me. So pack a couple of bottles and plank them in there. If it means that you have to throw something out, like a spare tire, just do it. Create space for your whiskey.
Right. So you're an advocate of ensuring that home entertainment system is there and packed.
Of course. And I would say, and also just make sure everything's sort of battened down before you set off, because nothing worse than the carnage behind you as things fall out of drawers and cupboards that haven't been properly taped down. So, but it's good fun, and just take your time.
Okay.
You're going to be going through Scotland and different areas, as we've been talking about. Just take your time and don't mind that queue of 40 cars behind you with furious people. Just don't worry about those guys. Just take your time and enjoy it. That's what I would say.
I mean, that's a great one. I mean, eventually you do.
No,
pull
you don't.
over,
Just
though,
keep
right? I mean, you just. All right, fair play. Good stuff. I'll report back in season 2 of our podcast how that.
So part of your
went.
Upcoming trip, Gregor, right, is camper van, right?
Yeah, week 1 is a hired car to Isla with some of you reprobates in Campbelltown, and then I shift over to hometown friends and proper travelling whiskey road trip. Pick up a camper van in Edinburgh, and then dot our way up as far up to Aberdeen, Inverness, and then cut across to Rassay. And this is the benefit of the camper van's already sort of made sense. I was able to pivot a little bit now, because we've not committed to accommodation, and we've decided we're going to get down south to Ardnamurchan and hit Ardnamurchan as a little add-on, and that's already going to, I'm really excited at
so
that.
you're able to utilise the ferry system on the west coast as well, and to get around the islands too.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. I'll keep a wee tally of how many planes, trains, and ferries.
Also, keep in mind, obviously, my experience of distilleries and camper vans isn't great, so keep in mind how many are closed when you visit as well, Gregor. See if you can beat my record of all of them.
Yeah, don't have Scott Monroe jinx you. Hopefully they're open for you.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
So you're gonna wear this is the Caledonian run, right? So
you're coming on with the Brandon as well.
It actually looks amazing. I saw it on the live with the Scotch on the Bayou. It's awesome.
Right. Yeah.
I was gonna say you're gonna have to document it for us, if not for a Dramface feature, but just so we can live vicariously through you.
Yeah, sure. That's a good shout. I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah, keep a diary, Gregor.
A Dramface feature would be nice.
On my old blog about, I did an Isla diary, which I meant to do years and years ago, before I did. And just keep a diary. It doesn't have to be in depth, but it's quite a nice thing to look back on and attach pictures to as well.
What I'll do, I'll record it and then I'll send it into the sub-editor of Dramface and see if that can work his magic. No, I'm joking.
He's ruthless, though. I've heard
he's a nice fella. He's
ruthless.
He's the only Glaswegian
You'll probably pick me up for spelling mistakes in my oral delivery.
Yeah, I mean, when you read that back, Gregor, you will not recognise a single word of it. It'll all be changed.
It's because it'll be full of Glasgow patter. Nice stuff. Now, good circling round to Dramface. Ben, I wanted to ask you, as a new voice and a new how would you say, perspective actually from whiskey. You know, you're heavily involved in SMWS. Your involvement or your relationship with whiskey and whiskey purchasing is maybe different. I would love to spend some time on what you've thought of your interactions with Dramface and your thoughts on it and what use it is to you.
No, I was just commenting on, and I was sort of zoning in a recent article about Glendronach. What was that, a month ago? Maybe that was publishing Dramface at this time of recording. About a month ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 15th, Sunday, the 15th of May. I remember getting the traffic spike alert on my phone. They just kind of lit up the whiskey internet, that article.
I think it was just, when I've been going from an enthusiast to then sort of entering the business side of whiskey. It's been about 4.5 years as of this month. But when that happened, it took a few months to realize that a lot of assumptions that I had and that my fellow enthusiasts had about why things are done the certain way or why things are done at all were just false. And so it now, on one hand, that killed a lot of the romance that I had for whiskey, because some things were good, some things were bad. I'm just trying to think of specific examples, but the Glendronach one was an interesting article, I felt, because first of all, I learned something new from that. I too had this opinion that Brown-Forman had come in, and for the first few years, it was all good. They were a nice little sugar daddy, just rehabbing the Glendronach Visitor Center, and of course the bourbon distillers down here. The distillery experiences are fantastic, pouring all the money in. But then it was only a matter of time, and so when I too saw sort of the non-chill filtered or the changes to the label occur, and the single cask bottlings, they ditched the term single cask. All these things happening, I assumed sort of this malicious intent in a way, and to realize that's not the case, and it's just a matter of being accurate. I mean, I'm sort of summarizing the findings of the article. Was great. Was great, and I didn't know that, but I instantly started thinking of all other instances in which enthusiasts think that brands are trying to take advantage, and in fact that they're not. And there's just a bigger picture in most of these debates that I read about on Reddit or Instagram, and so that was sort of, for me, a really good perspective coming from an enthusiast, Dramface, to sort of recognize that it's not all good and evil, that it is a business at the end of the day, yes, but most of the people who are in the business still love the spirit. I shouldn't say most. I don't know. A lot people do. So I don't know. I just think there's an opportunity to bridge the gap a bit in terms of understanding. I did remark earlier that I think, one hand, if you learn too much, it can kind of kill the romance and the mystery. I think part of the enjoyment of the spirit is not knowing all the answers or not knowing why. But
it's interesting what you say, because there's a transition to be made there. There's a belief that you have because you have picked up the easy to share, the marketing spiel, the whatever it may be. You just believe it, and then you work out that it's not exactly like that. There's more complexity. There's more. Maybe it's not all purple heather and snowy topped mountains, right? But there's a reason for everything. The cynicism tends to be there because it's misunderstood. And what I think what we need to try to do, I don't know how much we've achieved it so far, but we've made the first few stabs there, and it's going to take a long time, is what we have to try and do is offer that bridge that you talk about, Ben, bridging that gap, because give a space that the enthusiasts can rant and shout and declare and, beat their chest, and then also have a space where the industry can come in and say, actually, this is why. And they can either do that under their brand if they want to, but if that's not appropriate, or if it's a conservative setup that they have and they need a wee bit of cover, then we can provide that too, and they can speak. And if we have to kind of take a wee knock to the romanticism for a bit in order to get over that barrier and then realise the real reasons for it, then we're all in a much healthier place to enjoy the thing, not for the stories, but for the truth.
Yeah, I should clarify on just that point. I would choose truth over romance, and any day of the week. And I think
depending on mood, right?
Well, I think that's just my personality. So I value truth, and I think consumers deserve the truth. So what I'm saying is now some may not feel that way, and they may choose to just believe that everything's aged by the sea. That's fine. It's not of my interest to be lied to, and I don't want to give the impression that marketers are not spewing bullshit every single day. They are. There's a lot of them out there. There are, but I just think sifting through this and evaluating different circumstances with minimal confirmation bias, I think it would be my preference. And I think Dramface is a wonderful forum for that, to bring truth, irrespective of where, who's telling it.
But there has to be a lick of humility to it as well, Ben, that if we stand up and we make these declarations and we shout these things, we have to be ready to say, oh, okay, that's not how I understood it. Okay, as enthusiasts, just as much as anybody else, because we're learning all the time. And the Glendronach thing was a perfect example of that. We all assumed, I am on record, I'm on the VPub shouting about it, talking about how against the zeitgeist it was, ranting and raving. And I didn't spend the time to ask the questions. I admit that now. But actually, that article there's a follow-up to that article, because there's absolutely a follow-up there. Lots of follow-ups potentially. So I look forward to
we often, there's a little way of working in our office, and we talk about always assume positive intent. And I know it's hard when marketing and bottom line is involved, but it's a good one. Ben, I'm curious, Ben. You jumped straight to a feature. Is it fair to say then, from your angle, or rather, from where you're coming from in your journey, your whiskey journey, once you've clicked on and absorbed all the podcast, you are jumping to the features, not the reviews. Is that fair?
Yeah, personally, I'm not one to really care for reviews. But there was a time when I absolutely read every review of every whiskey ever written.
Sure.
But I'm not really that sort of consumer. Just because I think if there's one thing I've gained from this business, that I'm in, which is selling single cask whiskeys, and so many sold to so many different people over the years. Some whiskeys that I've really written off as being unenjoyable have been some favorites of others, and I've sort of taken the stance that I don't want to deprive people of those experiences. If they want to feel that way, that's fine. So I think maybe I just judge my own palate now, and more than anything, whether whiskey's good or not, I think there are ways to tell. Who's making it. You have some experience with it, but reviews, for me, years back, every dollar spent, every pound spent, I needed to know I needed to trust where it was going. And so I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I didn't rely heavily on reviews on YouTube, on blogs, to guide my spending and ensure that I'm not wasting my money, because I've done that too, in the early days. Buy a bottle and realize this is just not good for me. Yeah.
There's also the other thing, that every review that we put out in Dramface has to have a bit of context or backstory or preamble, something that's, even if it's just entertaining, but hopefully insightful, something that gives a bit of depth. And every single whiskey that you review, every single whiskey that you pick up inspires that. You don't need to spend too much time thinking about it. You just look at the whiskey in your hand and you think, well, what's the angle on this? And it's often very, very obvious. It's quite interesting. So we're trying to do that as well, that even if folk are beyond the point where they feel they need to be led, they're kind of free and they're doing their own thing and picking their own whiskies, that hopefully there's still something that they can read there. Hopefully we can achieve that.
Yeah, I guess it's like any review, isn't it? No matter what the product is. I guess or be it a live music review or an album review, it's from a more personal kind of thing. So when I used to do music reviews, live reviews, you would always try and do something a bit different. Like, so you would try and something that happened that night, rather than just because anyone who's at a concert is going to be at some part a band's touring. Someone in London's going to read a review of a gig in Glasgow or whatever, and it'll be the same thing, the same set list. So you need to do something to try and bring it out a bit more personality. So that's what you try and do. So when someone reading that review is entertained by it, and they're not just reading a set list or whatever. Because I think we've all read that those kind of reviews before, no matter what the product is. You're just getting the basics. And what I've quite liked about Dramface and subbing the copy is the fact that everyone's got a story. Everything's personal, and every review is going to be personal anyway. But there's a focus, and you get to know people's personalities a little bit and stuff like that as well. So, and I quite like that aspect of it too. It's not just a kind of A to B sort of thing. You can go for weird tangents, and quite often they do. And I find that quite entertaining as well. But it's funny, review-wise, I tend to, you kind of, I agree, Ben. You know what you like, or you're going to take a punt on something. You're going to say, I'm going to buy this month or whatever, and see how it goes. And I used to rely heavily on reviews and what other people were thinking as I tried to find my way. So now I'm not like that, but I still like reading the reviews because it's something you're getting a bit of personality there to it as well, which I quite enjoy.
If you get to know, if you get to know the reviewer, not personally, but you've read quite a few reviews and maybe have some experience buying a few bottles, deciding whether you like them or not, and then getting to know their palate indirectly, I find that can be amazing. We talked about Scott and Bart earlier from Scotch Test Dummies.
Yeah.
I found out years back that, wow, this Bart guy and I seem to like the same things, and then I really trusted his opinion. Just so it took time to get there.
Sure,
but conversely, if someone I know this horse looning guy, he and I don't agree on anything. Whatever he likes, I'll probably not like it. So that I think that can really be a special indirect relationship that's really helpful for
that's
purchasing.
a good call.
Yeah, and actually, it's a good sub point. I think as much as we want everybody to be reading all the articles, I wonder if there's a shorthand to the writers, Roy. Almost like a Top Dram, or where, I don't know, something. I don't know. Maybe it's a bit juvenile. I think it'd be quite nice if there's a shorthand to understanding all the writers to date, rather than absorbing all their writings. You know what I mean? And to your point, Ben, I've got to know Scotch Test Scott, and over watching his reviews and so on, and then you start to realise, oh, actually, a line there. But there's a nicety to that discovery. But also, if there's a shorthand, it's not bad either. So just an idea.
I think it's difficult to kind of, as soon as you try and summarise somebody, you start to kind of pigeonhole them a wee bit. And
there's always going to be a whiskey that just surprises you anyway.
Sure.
Yeah. And surprises them. Surprises them too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's something there, though, definitely. I think
one of the things I've really enjoyed is that, there's some experienced voices writing for Dramface, but there's one or two openly, they're newbies, right? They're in the very early days, in the first year or two. There's a girl writing for us that's there. There's a Doogie Crystal, famously, is only a couple of years in, and I'm shocked how much value there is in reading somebody's initial steps in whiskey. You can relate to it so much. And it doesn't take a huge step for you to realise how many other new people, lockdown whiskey fans, maybe they are reading that thinking, I can relate to this. And I think, I can't think of another review platform out there at all that's been able to provide that today. Maybe Instagram can do it. Maybe there's Instagrammers out there that are fairly new, that are sharing their journey in the early stages. But we've got one of our most interesting to read writers is only a year or two in. Hamish is a very humble voice as well. He's the guy that wrote the Glendronach piece. We've got this. They're stepping forward not as writers first. They're stepping forward as whiskey fans. And the fact that they can write, we're just very grateful for. It's been interesting to see it unfold. A lot of things are a surprise. A lot of things were not designed. I'm kind of enjoying it.
Yeah. No. Ben, one last question for you. It's a follow-up to last week's. We were talking about if you were going to construct your own distillery, what would you be doing? I don't want to ask that now. I want to follow up to that. So it's not a distillery question, Ben.
You and
Or
which
you
one would
answer
it? Which one would it be that's currently
No,
produced?
Just use
well,
it as a
Like, which-
basis.
Well, yeah, I mean, no, it wasn't going to be, but if you want to answer it, you go for it. It was more like, I guess we were talking broad brushstrokes of like, I guess you would work back from what type of product were you trying to create, and you would work back to how to create that.
I think I would start with location first, and for the reason that I'm a tourist when I'm there, I would start with the location, because where do I want to be every day? You know, I think that's, to me, that's more important. I mean, hopefully I can make good whiskey. I can't. First of all, I can't make good whiskey myself, but hopefully, where this is hypothetical, hopefully, you know, I would trust my own skill to produce whiskey, and I would try to pick some place. And
It's a nice point of view, though. I feel like when we spoke about it last time, it was a case of like, what am I going to get out of it in terms of the bottle rather than the experience? I think that's the romantic side of Scotland.
Ardnamurchan, it's easy to go there and say, oh, I get it now. I know why they did it. It was really remote, and there's charm with that. I'd probably build something a little closer to Glasgow, just because I know for the commercial side of me would want accessibility and bringing people in to share with. But this is not about. They're not. I'm asking. I think I'm answering a non-serious question with a serious answer. No, I would want to be the most beautiful place. I would be off the coast somewhere between Ben Nevis and Ardnamurchan. I would definitely want to produce a variety of different styles of whiskey. Loch Lomond is a good example of them. They have so many different stills. I mean, where would you? I get bored easily, you know, and so I want to produce a variety of different spirits.
To kind of like,
yeah.
So obviously, if you're creating this distillery, you're gonna have to spreading doing everything all at once might be very difficult. But what would be what you started off with? What would be your like? Okay, I'm gonna start making whiskey. What's kind of like?
I think it would taste like Bunnahabhain from the very beginning. I mean, I think
that's what Gregor was after. He's punching the air.
I think there'd be about 5 ppm to that malt, and I think there would be something, but it would be. And I've not had Ardnaho or anything or what they're producing, but maybe that project itself is sort of in line with. Of course, that's an Isla, but I think that's sort of a lightly peated. But I would probably go.
Where is Ardnaho at, actually?
Ardnaho's on the single track road from.
On the road to.
No, sorry. I meant journey wise. They're a couple of years now. Are they close?
They've got whiskey now. Whether they're going to release it or not, I think it's unlikely. They talked about it being there for a long time, but I think there's a huge temptation to kind of release on the crest of excitement there are for these new and certainly Ardnaho will be one of the most anticipated, I would guess. Mm-hmm. But they've only recently. Well, are you going to be on Isla with us when we visit Ardnaho, Gregor? Thursday morning.
Yes.
Yeah, so you'll understand completely. We're going to Ardnaho on the Thursday.
Sorry, Ben, I cut you off on your stream of consciousness. You were.
No. I'm realizing this is going in a direction that is just so nonsensical, because I want to make every style of whiskey under one roof. I want to use all the different stills, but it's going to all taste like Bunnahabhain. It makes no sense.
Yeah,
I've been meaning to open this for the last 10 minutes. But it's a Bunnahabhain. Yeah, the Fescio bottling, which was at the Edinburgh airport.
No way!
Wow. Yeah. The only festival bottling they actually had was the.
Oh, that's tremendous!
2022.
Which one's that? Sorry,
specs.
Yeah.
So it is interestingly
unpeated. That one, I think, is that the.
Yeah, presumably married. Let's see here. Okay, so I'm not sure how I feel about this, but it is matured in small octave casks. That once, I would assume, partially matured in small octave casks. That once held sublime PX sherry, and then married with Oloroso and bourbon matured Bunnahabhain. So they took some small PX sherry octaves, and they blended those in with presumably hogshead sherry butts, Oloroso and bourbon matured Bunnahabhains. No age statement of any sort. Interesting.
Wow.
Interesting
sounds good.
concept on paper.
It must have been a big outturn, and they're using octaves there, so they've used a lot of octaves in order for there to be enough for there to be some overspill available for Edinburgh Airport, right? There's
there we go. There is something to be got in duty free, as Ben's proven. Spoiler, Ben. We are nearing the end, so if you did want to open that on the podcast, then by all means.
No, I'll respect the time. I'm gonna. That's one I'm not gonna rush. I still have this whiskey in my glass here. This other one I just opened. Which, Roy, I think you got this from Martin American as well, right?
Sandabut,
yeah.
Just opened this incredible.
one, so I don't want to rush it. So
all the spoilers for all the treats I'm bringing to Isla. I'm bringing the mezcal. I'm bringing the Sandabut. I'm bringing some other retreats.
Since we're talking about, I'm not going to say what it is, but there might be a Fischel bottle of Bunnahabhain coming with me back to Isla next week.
I'm on your Russell.
Nothing like that. No, that's not what it is.
I love it. Okay. I love that it's left the island only to go back.
There's something quite.
That's what it's all about.
Quite nice about that. I think the return journey is the final journey it's going to make, because it's not coming back with me.
And the thing is, it's not environmentally irresponsible because they were never bottled on the island anyway. So
fair. I was going to say whiskey's dirty little secret is its carbon footprint of the bottle muling. That'd be funny. I'd love to see that. No, all good. I think before we head towards I Am a Distillery, and we'll probably explain that to you, Ben. It's a fun little game at the end of the podcast. I think it's worth pointing out or reminding the gang, we are going to take a little summer break as everything winds down. Some of us are on vacations and so on, so it's going to be hard to record. So, we'll pick the recording back up as soon as all bodies are back in seats and we can make it happen. Hopefully it's not a really too much of a hiatus as to how the cadence of things coming out are. But we are going to leave the answer phone on. We're going to leave the drama phone on over the summer.
I've got a suggestion, and I've got the right crowd in to suggest this to you. Can I suggest this?
Go for it.
If we're going to leave the drama phone on, I'm going to leave it on publicly. I'm going to put it out publicly on the website.
Oh, yes.
I've got nods.
Yes.
So listen, members, can we just say a heartfelt thank you so much? I mean, your support, getting behind, getting on board, helping us finance this thing. At the very least, what it does is it tells us that we're onto something, that we're doing the right things, and the fact that people are willing to step up and financially support is wonderful. So we're always going to try and find these little nuggets to bring you guys first and support you first. But we've done enough wee testing with it now, with Jason's good wishes for his farewell. We tried it for the first time with Helen and Andy's response, the podcast before that. Tonight we've used it with Craig down the Gower Peninsula there with his seafood. And, if people troll this thing or abuse it, then we just delete the email. Or we use it to our advantage for humorous effect. I think for summer, we just put it out there and leave it public and see what happens, right? And we'll pick any kind of gold from it.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And we realise it's not for everyone, but for sure, use it. It's fun. It's a fun way of getting interaction, and I like it. I love bringing in another voice from the reader's side. It's good fun.
Aye, and you can tell whether they've written it down first and they're reading it from a note paper.
I know,
or they're just kind of going off the cuff. It's fun. Yeah,
tremendous, good stuff. Well, Ben, we finish off these podcasts with a wee game. Roy, the eternal quizmaster that he is, came up with a new format. It's good fun. It's called I Am a Distillery, and it's sort of like 21 questions, but it's actually only 10. And you work back from the most vague down to probably getting more obvious as to the distillery. The thing is, as Royce often says, you've got one shot to shoot. So once you've committed, that's you. You can choose. Yeah, you can choose to shoot, from the 3-point line, Ben, or wait for a layup. It's up to you.
And I think last week's was great because it at the start where Gregor and Rob were thinking, we can't play this game, we've got no chance. But then I went too early last week, and Rob could relax a wee bit, and he just no pressure on him, just picked it up and took it off to the. Yes,
somehow.
he won it last week.
Full disclosure, I might have looked like I was trying to think. I was Homer Simpson with the wee monkey in his brain clapping the symbols together. I was in a different place. But yes, so Ben, it does work that whoever's first, if you both are trying to say the same, whoever's first to say it, you've got it. You've got and you won't find out to the end, so that the listener can play along, right? So
do I shout it? Do I say it aloud when I?
Yes. Yeah.
Whenever you want to put your bid in, just say it out loud.
We'll all say it out loud when we feel.
Oh, so we're all sort of competing.
Yeah. Actually, we should have had fun there. We should have said to Ben, you have to make the sound of your spirit animal to get first in.
That's a subject for a season 2 podcast. What is your spirit animal?
That was my goldfish sound.
Yeah,
right
mine's a distillery. Mine's a distillery door just closing in my face.
Good stuff. Well, as Roy pointed out last week, Rob, you stole it. So
yeah,
it's on you.
Now I have the pressure of figuring out the questions. Yeah, it was Fortunately, I've got to admit, I'm sorry to Ingvar Rond. I don't have the book or the Bible, as we all call it. So this is all. So I know
you don't own a copy.
I don't know.
Why have I not bought you a copy? That'll be remedied post haste, young man.
So forgive me if any of these are slightly incorrect. I've tried to keep them. Yeah. Anyway, we'll see how we go.
Okay.
Anyway, so yeah, good luck, everyone. So first question. Or first reveal, I am a distillery. I am
no takers.
I am a lowland distillery.
Ooh, kind.
I was founded.
Glenkinchie. I'm going in.
Do it.
Yeah.
I was founded on a farm in the 1800s.
Bladnoch.
I was mothballed for a short time in the 1950s. I was once owned by an Irish distilling company.
Oh.
I think I've lost out on that one. Maybe.
No, I don't know, mate. I don't know.
At my peak, I had 6 washbacks.
Obscure.
I have 3 non-age statement bottles in my core range.
It's Bladnoch, isn't it? It's Bladnoch.
That's what I was thinking.
No, I don't think so.
It's been nicked.
One of those non-age statement bottles means respect in Sanskrit.
Still Bladnoch, I feel. Yeah. I don't know for sure, but I still feel
they have strong.
I claim to be the most southernmost distillery in Scotland. I am Bladnoch.
No.
Yeah.
Hey,
nicked.
So Irish distillers on that.
Yeah. You're supposed to dance.
I can't. You got that very quickly.
Well,
yeah.
Do you know what the reason? It was the farm question, and the only reason I thought that was because of there used to be the old Bladnoch bottles with farmyard animals on them. Do you remember, like kind of oval shape? There's like
that's right. The green labels with the green labels.
Yeah, that's right. So
I actually thought about moving or getting rid of the I am a lowland distillery. Yeah, I thought it'd just make it super hard otherwise, but then maybe it's too easy.
I was thinking though when you mentioned the non-age statements, I was thinking about Auchentoshan for a bit there as well.
Auchentoshan. Yeah, that's where my head was.
The one that was drawing me, especially when he talks about it being it wasn't mothballed, it was pulled back from ruin, was Annandale. I thought there was a chance it could be Annandale, and I was a wee bit out there, but no, Bladnoch. And obviously the Armstrongs, Northern Ireland you're talking about with the connection there in Ireland. And well done, Scotty Monroe.
Thank you very much.
So you take the trophy home and you get to keep it over the course of the summer break.
Oh yes,
I will.
Make sure it's polished. Make sure it's polished for coming back.
It'll be absolutely fine. I'll keep it in the best condition it can possibly be. Don't you worry. It's fine.
Yeah, he'll use it as a bucket to trap all these leaky skylight water in the camper van.
No, I'm actually going to go to the distillery and just say, "You don't know who I am. Look at my trophy. Let me into your."
Please open your doors. Please let
All
me
I
in.
want's a bit of cake and a cup of tea.
People
A slice of
know
toast
me.
and a cup of
I'm
tea.
kind of a big deal. That's so good. So Scott, a little I Am a Distillery maybe on the return on season 2 then.
Yes,
if you
that's
can.
absolutely fine. No problem at all.
By all means, listeners, if you want to record an I Am a Distillery, that
would
could
be
be an option
That would be
also.
fantastic.
Myself or Roy will need to chop it up, but that can be a fun way of you guys getting involved in delivering. So now that the floodgates are going to open, by all means, get involved. So yeah, tremendous. It's been a fun ride. It's been great taking part in this podcast through to 12 episodes. Never thought we would get here.
Well,
so yeah,
13 including the pilot. I'm a wee bit sad
Very
because
true.
now I have no friends to hang out with over summer.
You could just pretend. You could just jump on and pretend you're talking to people.
Just
You
replay
never
all the
know.
podcasts.
That's what I do every Thursday night.
Oh, too good. Ben, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, it was fun.
It's been great fun. And lads, great as always.
Always.
See you in a few days. So yeah, and thank you guys for listening more so than
Yep, thank you.
than anything. It's been great.
It's been brilliant.
And we'll see you on the next one. Cheers all.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Nice one. Good stuff.
Bum bada bum 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 bada bum 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 bada bum 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 bada bum 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 bum.
Is that the B-52s?
No, it's Airwolf.
Oh my gosh!
Stringfellow Hawk. Ernest
Airwolf,
Borgnine.
Airwolf and Street Hawk are tremendous. I must see if they're any good.
Bum ba ba bum bum ba ba bum ba ba bum 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 bum.
I can't believe we're talking about this. This is nonsense.